The movie begins with Moana, who is seen running in the woods, alongside her dog and chicken. She arrived at the top of the mountain, and blows a horn in expectations to get a response, but she was disappointed. She missed her step and fell to the bottom of the mountain. There, she sees an antique which belongs to another clan. Thrilled by this discovery, she gathered her pets and puts them on a boat to set sail, heading back to the village. The villagers were eager to see Moana, and they came together to welcome her, including her father who is the chief of the village. She showed the antique she found to her dad, and tells him it's a sign that there were other villages out there. At that moment, her little sister called out to her from the crowd, and they hugged each other passionately. Moana surprised her little sister by taking her to the cave of their ancestors, and allows her to play with the boats. Moana explains to her the dreams of their first leader, to unite every village of the ocean together, but he was stopped after Maui stole Te Fiti's heart, and now it's her duty as Wayfinder to bring them together. Meanwhile, far from the island was Maui. He was also in search of a lost island, and there he came across a witch named Matangi, and she tries to stop Maui from carrying out his quest. There was a celebration going on in the village. Moana and her sister were also present. Her father, who is the village chief, was going to bestow the title of the Wayfinder to Moana. He gives her a drink to complete the initiation, and at that moment, a lightning struck from above, and Moana was taken into a trance. She sees the elders of her tribe, and watched how a terrible disaster befell them. Again she sees her village, but this time it was empty. Suddenly, a man appears behind her. He tells her what she saw was the future if she doesn't unite the other tribes. Restoring the heart of Te Fiti was only the beginning, and she has to find the island of Motufetu. He also promised to guide her by a light in the sky. Moana wakes up from the trance, terrified by what she saw. The village historian tells them about Nalo, who is a very wicked and powerful god, and his quest for power was what brought about the separation of the tribes. The only way to break this curse was to reach the island of Motufetu. They heard a noise from outside, and came out to see a fire in the sky. The villagers didn't want Moana to leave, with the fear that they might not see her again. Moana was drowning in booze when the spirit of her grandmother appeared to her. She tells Moana not to worry, and assures her she would always be there to guide her. Moana called together the village, and tells them of her mission to break the curse of Motufetu, and unite the tribes. As she was preparing to move out, her mother tells her she needs a crew. Moana buys this idea and goes to recruit Lodo, who was happy to join, and also Grandpa Kele. She also made plans on recruiting Maui, as they might need his help. And just then, she came across Moni, who was a fan of Maui, and she recruited him. Meanwhile, her sister Simea was not happy about her leaving. She takes her to the ocean and tells her the ocean is her friend, and she would always find her way home. Simea then gives a piece to remember home. The villagers all gathered, as they set to embark on the journey. Moana and her crew eagerly board the boat and set sail, not knowing the dangers which lies ahead. Meanwhile, Maui was tied up in a cave, dangling from his hook. He tries his best to grab his hook to escape, but he was interrupted by Matangi, who tells him there was no way he could escape. Moana and her crew followed the fire in the sky. They were all happily rejoicing together, and just then the fire in the sky exploded, which caused a bit of confusion. At that moment, they saw a shadow on the sea which seems like Mount Motufetu. As they came closer to the shadow, they discover it was the Kakamoras, a tribe of angry-looking coconuts. The Kakamoras' ship split to reveal a very big monster behind them. Moana and her crew tried to fight the coconuts, but they were all tranquilized. At that moment, the king sees a picture of Motufetu, and he orders Moana and her crew to be brought to him. The coconuts arranged themselves to form a picture. Turns out they were also one of the tribes, who lost their home during the reign of the powerful god Nalo, and they came across the sea monster while searching for a new home. Moana made a deal with the coconuts to help destroy the monster for their freedom, and they agreed. A giant worm slimes over them to subdue the effects of the tranquilizer. The crew then set out into the middle of the monster. Moana sees the heart and was about to hit it with a spear which has been dipped in the tranquilizer, and just then she missed her step, and the spear fell off. One of the coconuts came to the rescue and throws a spear hitting the heart. The monster was drowning into the ocean, and the coconut had to cut the line to save the rest of his clan, allowing himself and Moana's crew to be swallowed by the monster and taken down into the ocean. Moana was separated from the others as they were falling. The others fell into the cave where Maui was been tied up. He used this as an opportunity to reach his hook and set himself free. He also warns them to look out for Matangi, as she was a terrible witch. As he was leaving, he sees the chicken and realizes the crew were with Moana. Meanwhile, Moana was having a nightmare, where she sees her sister turn into a monster. She wakes up from the dream to meet Matangi, the witch which controls bats. The witch was also a prisoner being held by Nalo. Matangi already knows of Moana's mission to break the curse of Motufetu and offered to help, in the hopes that she would be free if Moana succeeds in defeating Nalo. She then opens a portal which allowed Moana to unite with the others, but she couldn't go with them because of a spell placed by Nalo. Moana was happy to see Maui, and also be reunited with her team members. Maui tells them they just signed their death sentence. He explains that Motufetu was hidden under a terrible storm which was impossible for any human to reach, and that's the reason he has to complete the mission alone. They came to the top of the ocean, and Moana tries to ask the ocean for help, but she got no response. On spur of the moment, they saw a light in the ocean, which turns out to be a monster sent by Nalo to attack them. Maui tries to defend them, but soon they began to see other monsters, and were surrounded. Moni falls into the ocean, and was swallowed by the monster. Maui immediately dives into the water to save him. The monster all retreated as the sun comes up. Moana was scared she lost Moni, but luckily he was rescued by Maui at the last minute. They crashed on a small island, and discover their boat has suffered serious damages. Moana began to lose hope and blames herself for everything that has happened. Maui tries to cheer her up and comforts her. He tells her how strong she is and she was chosen to be a wayfinder for a reason. Moana felt relieved by his words, and as she goes to apologize to her crew, she discovers they had built another boat, and were waiting for her. They geared up and ready to break Nalo's curse on the island. They arrived at the tip of the storm, and Maui uses his power to stop the hurricane which kept coming after them. They realized the storm was sent only after humans, and they used this as a distraction. Moana sailed the boat to the other side of the ocean. Meanwhile, Maui find the mountain. He used his hook to pull the mountain to the top, and just then, he was struck by a powerful lightning, which stripped him of his powers, and his godhood. On seeing this, Moana dives into the ocean, but as soon as she touched the mountain, she was struck by lightning. The storm disappeared and the skies became clear, indicating that the curse has been broken. Maui jumps into the water and sees Moana floating away. He carried her, and at that moment, the ancestors appeared to them chanting a song, and Moana was revived back to life. She was also given a tattoo on her arm, to confirm her status as Wayfinder. On the other hand, Maui also got his powers back. He uses his powers to pull the mountain back to the top of the ocean. Moana was happy to meet with her crew again, and at that moment, they began to see other tribes coming from the ocean. Moana finally got back to the village and was reunited with her family. They also held a celebration, and everyone was happy. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to this channel.